What are those noises? I'm especially excited for today's video in particular because this topic of breastfeeding is one that I get asked about a lot. I have a daughter, Summer. She's a month old, and I've been pretty open and transparent with you guys here both on YouTube and Instagram about our journey and that we're breastfeeding and things like that, but I haven't actually gone in depth on what our breastfeeding journey and story has been and the tips that I have used to make breastfeeding work for us. Breastfeeding can be very hard. It actually is really hard. It still is hard even with these tips, but these tips have made it manageable, and we're just continuing to learn and figure each other out. And she's a baby, so she's hungry all the time, and if she's not eating, she's fussy or sleeping. That's basically, you get one or the other. So it's a lot of time commitment. It's also a lot on your body, and there's just a lot that goes into it, and it can really wear on you emotionally too if you feel like you're not being successful at breastfeeding. I've compiled 10 tips for breastfeeding that I have learned that have helped me, and as I go through those tips, I will also just be sharing with you my experience. I do always feel the need to state a little disclaimer in videos like this. I am not a doctor. I am not a lactation consultant. Everything that I'm sharing with you today has worked for me and is something that has helped me and Summer. However, it may be different for you. So definitely ask your doctor or lactation consultant. If I say something here, don't just take my word for it. Do your own research as well. I also will make sure to bring in Summer at the end of the video so that you guys can see her. She's taking a nap right now, so that's good. Hopefully she'll let me get through my portion of the video, and then I'll bring her in so that you guys can say hi to her and see her. I know you guys love seeing her. Summer is a month old now, and I definitely feel like we have breastfeeding down, like the actual feeding portion of it, the latching and everything like that. But getting there was really hard. We had a lot of ups and downs, and I'll get into that. Hopefully these tips will help you get through the first month or wherever you're at. Even if your baby is older than a month and you're still struggling, hopefully this video helps you. So let's get into my 10 breastfeeding tips and my breastfeeding journey with Summer. The first tip I have for you, and this hopefully should be available at any hospital, is to go to a breastfeeding class before you even have your baby. I went to a breastfeeding class and I actually vlogged that day. I will link the video down below in the description bar and maybe up in a card up here. Yeah, I vlogged that day and I talked to you guys a lot about what I learned in that class, and that class was extremely valuable. It kind of opened my eyes to what breastfeeding was going to be like. I think without that class, I would have been in even more shock of how hard breastfeeding is and how time consuming it is. I feel bad when I continue to say like how time consuming it is because you're bonding with your baby, but the truth is you're going to be feeding your baby like 8 hours a day because they need to eat 8 to 10 times a day, and it generally lasts 40 minutes each session. So it's a lot of time throughout your day, and yes, of course, you're bonding with your baby. It is beautiful to watch your baby and look at your baby, but it starts to get really long, especially in those night hours. So the breastfeeding class kind of taught me that and taught me, you know, what is to be expected. And I think that that was really important because I wasn't shocked once I had the baby that I was going to have to be feeding the baby every 2 hours or so. And another thing to keep in mind when they say to feed the baby every 2 to 3 hours, it's based on when you start the feeding session. So if the feeding session takes 40 minutes, you really only have an hour and 20 minutes until you need to feed your baby again, unless you're going to go 3 hours. So keep that in mind too. It's not 2 hours from the end of the feeding, it's 2 hours from the beginning. So you're constantly feeding your newborn in that first month, 2 months. I think around the 3-4 month mark, they can stretch out longer periods of time. Hopefully that's the case. But in the first month or two, you are just constantly feeding your baby. And it's actually ironic because her and I are coming off of cluster feeding. The last couple days, I think she has gone through a growth spurt or something because she's been wanting to feed literally every hour. So that's been really draining for sure. Going to that breastfeeding class was really important because it informed me, and I wasn't going into this completely blind. It still is way harder than I expected it to be, but at least I wasn't going into this completely blind. So the next tip I have for you is probably an obvious one, but it's really crucial and definitely, I would say, the most important, because if you don't get this right, breastfeeding is going to be miserable. And this tip is to get the latch right. If you have a baby that is not latching properly onto your breast, it is going to be painful. That is one of the things in the breastfeeding class that the lactation consultant did say, is that breastfeeding shouldn't be painful. I sort of disagree with her. I mean, I think it's going to be painful the first few days regardless, just because your nipples are not used to all that friction. And Summer did have a pretty good latch from the start. She was a little bit small with her mouth, so we had to open her up more, but I think my nipples just weren't used to all that friction, and it was painful. Very, very painful. We got over that, and I actually had a lactation consultant from the Visiting Nurses Association. I don't know if the VNA, the Visiting Nurses Association, is specific to New York State or if they have them throughout the country, but I'm sure there's some sort of service around you where you could have a nurse come to your house. So I actually had a lactation consultant come to my house and make sure she was latching correctly. And what she suggested was to change the positioning of how I was feeding her. So I had just been doing the traditional like cradle hold position, and she had me switch to the football position, and that really helped. I think just maybe getting her off of the sore spots was really important. When Summer was first born and they did skin to skin, she latched onto this breast for 2 hours straight, which I don't know if that is recommended. I know that they're supposed to latch and you're supposed to let them get that colostrum for a little while, but I don't know if 2 hours was necessary or not. I'm not really sure. I just let her do it because she wanted to, and she was just born, so I figured this is probably a good thing. But I don't know that her latch was perfect, and it made this breast so sore. So sore. So I know that they say in classes and probably online in different research and things that breastfeeding should not hurt. And it shouldn't once you get it right, but just don't be surprised if the first few days it does hurt. I kind of was expecting, okay, it shouldn't hurt. As long as I'm doing everything right, it's not going to hurt at all. I think we were doing things basically right, but it still hurt. So just keep that in mind. It's probably a pretty rare occurrence where it's not going to hurt at all. So I kind of just combined my second and third tip. My second one was to get the latch right, and my third one was to seek out help if you need it and get a lactation consultant to come to your house if you need extra help once you leave the hospital. The hospital may have lactation consultants there. At my hospital, the lactation consultant was not available very often, so it was kind of difficult. The nurses were supposed to be able to help me and things like that, but honestly, getting the lactation consultant to come to my house and just be one-on-one with me and my baby, it was so helpful. It really saved us. We got the latch perfectly right, and ever since then, her and I have done super well with breastfeeding. So tip number 4 is if you do end up getting sore nipples like me, you definitely want to get some of this Lanolin cream. This is the Lansinoh brand. There's a few different brands that carry it. I really like this one. I tried the Medela one at the hospital. I like this one a little more because it's thicker, so it seems to really just stay on better. This you can put on and leave it on, and you don't have to wipe it off before your next feeding session. This healed my cracked bleeding nipple in probably 24 to 48 hours. You just put this on. It's really good if you let them air out too, like you don't cover them up. So you just let them air out all day in between feedings with this on, and it really does work. It really will help. So definitely get this. I didn't have any when we came home from the hospital, and the people at the hospital told me I could just use organic extra virgin olive oil. So I'm like, oh, I have that. I'll try that. That did not work. It did not work at all. Get yourself some of this Lanolin cream. It really is important, especially if you're a little bit sore. I would get on it sooner rather than later because it's just going to continue to get sore and chapped and hurt. Tip number 5 is to keep track of your feedings on your phone. So this is just so that you don't have to be constantly remembering when to feed your baby next. You have so much going on, you're gonna be so tired because they're getting up all night to eat. So I just would go into my notes app and I made a breastfeeding note, and I would just mark down each time that I began feeding. So then I would know 2 hours later I would need to feed her again. I also kept track of all of her pees and poops the first 2 weeks or so, just so I knew she was getting enough milk. It's hard to tell when you're breastfeeding how much milk they're actually getting because you're not seeing it come out of a bottle. You don't really know. You can tell when they're full because they'll fall asleep most likely or on latch, but you still don't really know how much they were getting. So I think the general rule of thumb is you want as many wet diapers as days of life. So on day 1 you want 1 wet diaper, day 2 you want 2, up to 6 days, and then I think you want to continue to have 6 to 8 wet diapers a day. I think it's something like that, but do your own research. So keeping track of the feedings and dirty diapers on my phone just gave me peace of mind that I wasn't going to forget, and it was really simple. They have apps for it where you can actually time your feedings and like put in if they were feeding on the left breast or right breast. I looked into an app, I couldn't understand it, and I really just felt like it wasn't necessary, so I just used my notes in my phone. But do whatever works for you, but I would suggest tracking it, at least for the first few weeks while you're still learning. I haven't tracked it this last week because she's just kind of been giving me cues every 2 hours, and I haven't needed to, and I'm just more in the mindset now, and I understand now how often I have to feed her, so I just haven't needed to, but definitely in the first few weeks I would suggest keeping track. Tip number 6 is to have a burp cloth with you at all times, water with you at all times, and a snack with you at all times, wherever you're going to be feeding. Have those things sitting ready for you wherever you're going to be feeding your baby. I can't tell you how many times, and I still do it, I'll forget to bring a burp cloth or my water or something with me, and she would just spit up all over herself, make such a mess. And so you definitely just want to have a burp cloth with you, and water. I am so bad at drinking water. My doctor just suggested try to drink a glass of water with each feeding. So every time I feed her, I try to be sucking down some water. So I keep my water bottle right next to me whenever I am feeding her. And also a snack too, especially at night. If you keep like a cereal bar or something at your bedside, it could be good, just because you're getting up so many times throughout the night, you're gonna eventually feel hungry, even though you could normally go through the night without eating because you're awake so much and you're working a lot. Breastfeeding burns a lot of calories. You will be a little bit hungry. So I would suggest just keeping a cereal bar or something at the bedside during the nighttime, along with water and a burp cloth. My 7th tip is to find some sort of entertainment that will help you pass the time while you're feeding your baby. And again, I would say half the time, or probably even 75% of the time when I'm feeding my baby, I am just kind of focusing on her. So I'm not trying to say that you just need to constantly be distracted because breastfeeding is so terrible and whatever. It is beautiful and it is a bonding experience, but especially during those nighttime feedings when you're so tired, it's really nice to find something to entertain yourself with. So whether it's watching YouTube videos, which I definitely do a lot of, or another thing I did during that first week was just search the internet for cute baby clothes. We didn't know the gender of Summer before giving birth to her, so we didn't have any cute girl clothes or anything like that. So the first week, a lot of times when she was feeding, I would just be looking at cute little baby girl clothes for her. So that was really fun. That helped pass the time. Just find something. Find a good show to watch. I've been loving Big Little Lies. That's the name of it, right? Big Little Lies? Yeah, I've been loving that show. I've caught up on the Kardashians. I've just, enjoyed my time and tried to find some light entertainment to watch. And there's nothing wrong with that, because as beautiful as it is to watch your baby feed and just bond with your baby, again, you're going to be doing this for 8 hours, sometimes longer than that, 10 hours a day. it's okay to take a little break for yourself and just distract yourself with some light entertainment. I think that's totally fine. Tip number 8 is to not feel like you need to sequester yourself when you're feeding your baby. I felt like the first week I really wanted to let my husband sleep in the bedroom and catch up on his sleep because he was going back to work and everything like that. So Summer and I stayed out in the living room all night for the first, I'd say, 3 nights or so, and it was okay the first night. The second night was a little harder, and by the third night I just felt so lonely and sad that I needed to move back into the bedroom, and he was totally okay with it. It wasn't like he ever told me, I need you out of here, I need to sleep. Not at all. He actually liked when we moved into the bedroom because I think he felt like he could be there for me when I had to wake up to feed her. Like, he would just wake up with me and keep me company, and I think that he felt good about that, like he was being involved in things like that. But I just had it in my mind that I needed to go away so that I wasn't bothering him, and don't feel like that. It can be really, really lonely if you're up all night alone, and especially just not in your bedroom. There's something about being in bed at night, even if you're not sleeping, it just makes me feel better and more human the next day. Like, I'm not just out on the couch all day and night. Also, when people come over to visit, if you need to feed your baby and tell them, if you don't want them there, tell them to leave. I've been bad at this. If people are over and I need to feed my baby, I've kind of sequestered myself in the nursery and fed her, and I wish I wouldn't do that because it's not fair to me, honestly. Like, if I want to feed my baby out where I'm comfortable in my living room, I should do that. So I've done that so many times the last few weeks whenever people are coming over to see her, and I am done with that. I'm gonna be feeding my baby, and if you don't want to see my boob, you can leave. Tip number 9 is a really good one. Really, really, really important for you emotionally. Never expect your baby to be done feeding, even if they're giving you the cue that they're done. And the reason I say this is there have been so many times, especially at night, where I'm feeding Summer and she falls asleep and looks super relaxed and like she is done and full, and I put her in her bassinet, in her little thing in our room, and 5 minutes later she's back up crying and wanting to eat more. And I don't know, it's just a newborn thing, I'm guessing. It's not like she's not getting enough food. I think she just likes the comfort. She likes to be with me. She likes to be eating. I'm sure that it's a normal thing. I'm sure there's also babies that will eat and then go sleep for 2-3 hours, and that's great. If that's your baby, you are lucky, but that is not my baby most of the time. A lot of times, I'd say 50% of the time, when I think she's full and completely asleep and ready to go, I'll put her down and she'll wake back up 10 minutes later. And I just had to get in the mindset of never assuming or hoping that she was going to go to sleep, because what would happen is I would get so frustrated. I would feed her, I would finally think I was going to get maybe an hour or 2 of sleep, and then she'd cry and it would just overwhelm me and frustrate me, and that's not fun. I want to have fun feeding my baby and have a good time bonding with her and not get frustrated at her, because it's not her fault. She's a little baby. She needs to eat. So I just had to get in the mindset of don't expect that she's going to go to sleep, because if I expected that and hoped for that, it got really frustrating. So that would be a tip I have for you, is even if your baby seems like they're done and they're full, don't get your hopes up. They might wake up a lot sooner than those 2 hours, especially at nighttime. My 10th tip for you is to definitely get nursing tanks and nursing bras. Oh. She was starting to get a little fussy, so I went to get her, but now she's passed out again. She's so stinking cute. You have some serious bedhead going on, girly. But let me just finish up the video. I was talking about my 10th tip. My final tip is to definitely get breastfeeding camis and bras. I was kind of like, I don't need that. I'll just wear a tank top, roll it down, whatever. Honestly, they're so nice. I only have 1 cami and a couple nursing bras. I should probably get more. I've just been literally washing them every other day. But they're so nice. I'm wearing a nursing bra right now. This is from Uplifties. I've talked about them here on YouTube and on Instagram a bunch of times. I love them. I'll link them down below. It's nice because it's black lace, so it kind of just looks like a little cami underneath this shirt. But it's just so nice because you can just pull your shirt to the side, especially one like this that's kind of open, and then you can just click it with one finger and it's so easy. And they come with a nice amount of padding in them, so if you're leaking, I should say when you're leaking, it doesn't get all over the rest of your clothes or drip down your leg. I've literally been changing her and felt drips on my feet and been like, what is happening? Oh, it's my boob dripping onto my feet. Really, really important. Even if you're a minimalist like me, I did a whole minimalist hospital bag video, which, by the way, I didn't even use half the stuff in that bag. And that was not even filled with a lot of stuff. But I definitely recommend getting nursing bras and nursing tanks. I'll link the ones I have down below, but I've heard that Target has some great ones too. I'll probably look into that myself just to get some more. So that I have more throughout the week. But yeah, guys, those are my 10 tips for successful breastfeeding. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Please let me know down in the comments if it was helpful or if you have any specific tips to share with everyone or any questions you have. I would love to continue the conversation. Breastfeeding can be very, very hard physically, emotionally, mentally, every which way. It can be very, very hard, but it is something so great that we can do for our babies, and it's not gonna last forever. That's what everyone keeps telling me. It's not gonna last forever. Soak up the time you have now with your baby, even though it can be very draining. And I seem very positive and happy right now, but don't get me wrong, just last night I almost lost it. So it's a roller coaster ride. Just because I'm put together and happy right now and my baby isn't crying and doing well does not mean that we don't have those moments as well. We do. We are not perfect. Yeah, I never want to come off like I have it all together, because I don't have it all together, I promise you. I was going to film this video yesterday actually, but wasn't able to because she was so fussy. I did not want to do my hair and makeup, which I know that you guys, even if I came on here without hair and makeup, you wouldn't care, but I care. I want to put myself together for you guys. So yeah, I was gonna do this yesterday. It didn't work out. Today happened to be a little bit of a better morning, so I was able to do it. But don't think that I have it all together either. These tips have helped me, but it's going to be a roller coaster ride no matter who you are. If you are on this journey as well, good luck to you. You can do it, we can do it, and we will get through it. I love you all so, so much, and we will both see you in our next video. Bye!
Oh, I think someone has a stinky diaper.